Ezra Cole hadn't touched another human being in 6 years. Not a handshake, not a pat on the shoulder, nothing. But when Martha Holloway hit the frozen mud, his hand was already reaching for her before his mind caught up. Jacob Pruitt's boot drew back for another kick. 3 little girls screamed from the porch. And something inside Ezra that had been buried next to his wife's grave caught fire. "Step away from her." Pruitt turned. "This ain't your concern, Cole." Ezra cocked his rifle. "I'm making it my concern. Welcome to my channel. If you want to know how one broken man saved a mother and her 3 daughters from the richest man in Wyoming territory, subscribe now and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. January 1879. Bitter Creek, Wyoming territory. Ezra Cole rode into town for feed and nothing else. 7 miles through knee-deep snow temperature cold enough to freeze spit before it hit the ground. He hadn't spoken to another soul in 16 days. That suited him fine. 6 years alone. 6 years of silence. 6 years since Hannah bled out on their cabin floor, baby Samuel dying 3 days later in Ezra's arms. He'd buried them on the hill behind the barn, and part of him went into that frozen ground with them. Now he was 43 years old, and most days he felt like a ghost wearing a man's skin. The screaming started when he reached the edge of town. Not surprised screaming, not angry screaming. The kind that came from a woman who'd learned that fighting back only made it worse. Ezra's horse stopped. His hand found his rifle. Main Street of Bitter Creek stretched out before him. Maybe 15 people standing in the cold breath rising in white clouds, all of them watching the same thing. Jacob Pruitt had his wife by the hair. Martha Holloway Pruitt. Ezra knew her by sight, nothing more. Married to Pruitt for near 3 years now. Before that, she'd been married to Silas Holloway, a miner who died in a tunnel collapse. Left her with 3 daughters and no way to feed them. So she'd married Pruitt, the richest man in the territory. The man who owned half the town and bought the other half's silence. Right now, that man was dragging her through the mud while her children watched. 3 years. Pruitt's voice cracked like a whip. 3 years I've given you everything, and you can't do the one thing a woman's supposed to do. He threw her down. Martha's body hit the frozen ground hard. She curled up, arms wrapped around her middle, protecting herself from what came next. It came fast. Pruitt's boot connected with her ribs. Once. Twice. "Barren," he spat. "Cursed. 3 daughters and not 1 son. What kind of woman are you?" On the porch of Pruitt's wagon, 3 girls huddled together. The oldest held her sisters behind her, one hand clamped over the youngest one's mouth to keep her quiet. Smart girl. She knew noise made it worse. Ezra counted the crowd. Widow Patterson, Tom Garrett, Doc Hensley, Reverend Crane with his Bible clutched to his chest like a shield, Sheriff Tibb standing right there, badge catching the morning light, doing nothing. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody helped. Pruitt grabbed Martha's hair again, yanked her head back. "You're gonna give me a son," he said, "or I'll beat one into you. Understand?" Martha's voice came out broken. "Please. The children, let them watch. Let them see what happens to a useless woman." His fist drew back. Ezra dismounted. His boots hit the snow, and the sound made Pruitt pause. "Turn." The wealthy rancher's face shifted from rage to annoyance. "Cole, didn't see you there." He kept his grip on Martha's hair. "This is family business. Ride on." Ezra walked forward, rifle loose in his hands. Not aimed. Not yet. "I said ride on." Pruitt's voice hardened. "Unless you want trouble." Ezra stopped 5 feet away, close enough to see the blood on Martha's face, the bruises already forming on her arms, the way her breath came shallow and pained ribs cracked, maybe broken. He looked at her, really looked. Brown hair matted with mud, split lip leaking red onto the snow, eyes that had stopped hoping for help a long time ago. He knew those eyes. He saw them every morning in his own reflection. "Ma'am?" His voice came out rough from disuse. "Can you stand?" Martha stared at him like he'd spoken Chinese. Pruitt laughed. "She can't do nothing right. Can't cook, can't clean, can't give me sons. 3 daughters." He said it like a curse. 3 useless daughters. "I'm talking to her, not you." Ezra extended his hand to Martha. "Can you stand, ma'am? Martha's voice cracked. "I don't understand." "I'm taking you out of here. You and your girls. I got a ranch 7 miles north. Roof fire food. Nobody there's gonna lay hands on you." The street went dead silent. Pruitt's grip on Martha's hair loosened. His face went through confusion, then disbelief, then something dark and dangerous. "You're what?" "You heard me. She's my wife, my property under law. You can't just—" "She's a woman, not property." Ezra's voice stayed flat. "And I can do whatever I damn well please." He reached down, took Martha's arm, pulled her gently to her feet. She swayed, gasped from the pain in her ribs, but stayed upright. "Girls," Martha called, her voice suddenly stronger. "Come here, now." The oldest moved first. She grabbed her sister's hands and ran, dragging them behind her. They reached their mother in seconds, pressing against her skirts, 3 small bodies seeking shelter. Pruitt's face had gone red. Veins stood out on his neck. "Tibbs." He turned to the sheriff. "Arrest this man. He's stealing my family." Sheriff Tibbs shifted his weight, looked at Ezra, looked at his own boots. "Well, Jacob, I don't rightly know if I pay your salary. I put that badge on your chest. Do your job." Tibbs took a step forward, stopped when Ezra's rifle came up. "I ain't looking for trouble, Sheriff," Ezra said quietly. "But I ain't running from it neither. This woman's been beaten bloody in front of half the town, and you stood there watching. Way I see it, you lost any right to talk about law." Tibbs swallowed hard, stepped back. Ezra lifted the youngest girl first. Nellie, he'd learn her name was. Maybe 2 years old, too scared to cry, just staring at him with huge dark eyes. He set her on his horse, gentle as he could. "Bessie, up you go." The middle girl, 5 or so, scrambled up in front of her sister. "Lucy?" The oldest. She looked at him with eyes too old for 8 years. "You ride with me." He helped Martha onto the horse, watched her wince as she settled the younger girls in front of her. Then he mounted his own horse and pulled Lucy up behind him. "Hold on tight." Her small arms wrapped around his waist. Pruitt stood in the middle of the street, shaking with rage. "You're a dead man, Cole. You hear me? Dead. She's mine. The law says she's mine." Ezra turned his horse north. "Cole," Pruitt's voice cracked, "I own this town. I own the sheriff, the judge, half the territory. You can't hide from me." Ezra looked back over his shoulder, met Pruitt's eyes. "Then stop talking and come take her." He kicked his horse into motion. Behind him, Pruitt screamed something else, but the wind stole the words. The crowd parted. Nobody tried to stop them. 15 people watched Ezra Cole ride away with another man's wife and children. Not one of them lifted a finger. The ride took 2 hours. Should have taken less, but Ezra kept the pace slow. The children were freezing, dressed for a trip to town, not a 7-mile ride through January wind. Martha slumped in the saddle, running on fear and nothing else. Lucy's arms stayed tight around his waist. She hadn't said a word since they left town. Halfway there, Bessie spoke up. "Mr. Ezra grunted. "Are you gonna hurt Mama too?" The question hit him like a gut punch. He pulled the horses to a stop. Martha went rigid. Her arms tightened around her younger daughters, that instinct kicking in, ready to protect them, even when she could barely stay upright. Ezra dismounted. Snow came up past his ankles. He walked around to where Bessie sat and crouched down, bringing himself to her eye level. "What's your name?" "Bessie." Barely a whisper. "Bessie, look at me." She did. Brown eyes. freckles across her nose, a bruise on her cheek shaped like a man's thumb. Something cold settled in Ezra's chest. "You see my hands?" He held them up, palms out. "These hands have done a lot of things. Built a cabin, broke horses, buried." He stopped, started again. "They've done hard things, but they ain't never hit a woman or a child, and they ain't gonna start. You understand?" Bessie studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, Mr. Ezra." "Just Ezra's fine." He stood to mount up again. Lucy's voice stopped him. She asked, "'Cause Papa says all men hurt their women." The girl's voice was flat matter of fact. "He says it's natural. Says it's what women are for." Ezra's jaw tightened so hard his teeth ached. "Your papa's a liar. He said it's in the Bible. Then he can't read." He mounted up, settled Lucy behind him again. "Hold tight. We're almost there." They rode on in silence. The wind picked up driving snow sideways across the prairie. Ezra pulled his coat off and passed it back to Lucy without a word. She took it, wrapped it around herself and her sisters on the other horse. Didn't say thank you. Didn't need to. The ranch appeared just as the sun hit its peak. Cabin, barn, corral with 6 horses watching their approach. Smoke rising from... Wait. No smoke. Nobody had been here to light a fire. The place looked cold, empty, dead. Like him. Martha's voice was barely audible over the wind. "This is it. This is it. It's so small." "Yes, ma'am." He helped them down. Nellie still hadn't made a sound that worried him more than the cold. A child that young should be crying, fussing something. Instead, she just stared at everything with those huge, dark eyes, silent as a ghost. "Inside," Ezra said. "I'll get a fire going." The cabin door stuck swollen from cold. He shouldered it open. The smell hit him first, dust and disuse, and something underneath that he'd never been able to get rid of. Lavender. Hannah had planted it by the door their first summer here. Said it made a house feel like a home. She'd been dead 6 years, and he could still smell it. Martha stopped in the doorway. The girls crowded behind her. 1 room, a bed, a table with 2 chairs, a fireplace cold and dark, a small kitchen area with a pump that probably needed priming. Everything clean but sparse, like a man had been surviving here but not living. "You and the girls take the cabin," Ezra said, already kneeling at the fireplace. "I sleep in the barn." "Mr. Cole." "Ezra." "Ezra." Martha's voice shook. "I need to understand. Why are you doing this?" He didn't answer. Just focused on building the fire, kindling first, then larger pieces the routine so familiar he could do it blind. "Please." Her voice cracked. "Men don't risk their lives for strangers, not without wanting something." The fire caught. Ezra watched the flames climb for a moment before standing. 6 years ago, he said, not looking at her. "I had a wife, Hannah, prettiest girl in Missouri. I brought her out here to build a life. Told her we'd have a ranch, a family, everything." He picked up the poker, adjusted a log that didn't need adjusting. "She died in childbirth. Baby lasted 3 days. I buried them on the hill out back." Martha was silent. "This morning when I heard you screaming..." He set the poker down. "I heard her, Hannah. I heard her screaming when the baby wouldn't come. I heard her begging God for mercy." He finally turned, met Martha's eyes. "I couldn't save her. Couldn't save my son. But I could save you. So I did." "That's it. That's the only reason?" "Only one I got, ma'am." Martha stared at him, searching for the lie, the trap, the hidden price. He'd seen animals look like that in traps, desperate to believe they might get free, but certain they wouldn't. "How do I know you won't hurt us?" "You don't." He moved toward the door. "Don't know me from Adam. All you got is my word and I'm a stranger, but I'm telling you anyway. Long as I'm breathing, nobody touches you or those girls. And if I don't believe you, then bar the door after I leave. Keep my rifle. I'll sleep in the barn and bring food in the morning. You can decide then if you want to stay or go." He pulled the door open. Cold rushed in. "Mr. Cole." He stopped. "Your wife," Martha said softly. "What was she like?" Ezra was quiet for a long moment. "She believed in people," he said finally. "Believed everybody had good in them, even when they didn't. Believed God had a plan, even when things went wrong." He almost smiled. Didn't quite make it. "She would have liked you. Would have liked your girls." He stepped out into the cold. "Bar the door. 3 knocks means it's me." The door closed. He heard the heavy wooden bar slide into place. Good. She wasn't stupid. That would keep her alive. The barn was colder than the cabin, but warmer than the wind. Ezra settled into the hayloft, wrapped himself in blankets that smelled like horse and hay and loneliness. His hands were shaking. Not from the cold. From something else. Something that felt too much like hope, and hope was dangerous. Hope had buried his wife and son. Hope had built this cabin and filled it with nothing but ghosts. He talked to Hannah like he did every night. "Did the right thing," he whispered into the darkness. "I know you'd say so. But Hannah, I'm scared. Scared I'll fail them like I failed you." The wind howled outside. "Don't know why I did it. Saw her there in the mud, saw those little girls crying, and I just moved. Didn't think. Didn't plan. Just moved." He closed his eyes. "Maybe that's what you'd want. Maybe that's why you're still in my head after all this time. Making me do things I wouldn't do on my own." Sleep wouldn't come. Too many thoughts. Too many memories. Too many ghosts.
Banded.
Morning came gray and cold and loud. The sound yanked Ezra out of half-sleep, and he had his rifle in hand before his eyes were fully open. Laughter. Children's laughter. He lay there for a moment, heart pounding, trying to remember the last time he'd heard that sound. 6 years. At least 6 years. He climbed down from the loft and cracked open the barn door. The 3 girls were in the yard. Lucy was showing her sisters how to scatter feed for the chickens. Bessie chased a fat red hen in circles, giggling every time it squawked and ran. Even Nellie was watching, not laughing, but almost smiling. Martha stood on the cabin porch. She'd cleaned herself up some, washed the blood off her face, combed her hair. The bruises stood out stark against her pale skin, purple and yellow and green, a map of the last 3 years of her life. She saw him watching and straightened, lifted her chin. Pride. Even beaten down she had it. "The children were hungry," she said. "I found the food stores. I hope that was acceptable." "I told you it was." "You told me a lot of things." Her eyes didn't leave his. "I'm still deciding which ones to believe." Fair enough. Ezra went about his morning routine, feeding horses, breaking ice on the water trough, checking the fence line for damage. Normal work. The kind of thing that kept a man's hands busy while his mind raced. Lucy appeared at his elbow while he was mending a fence post. "Mr. Ezra. Just Ezra. Ezra." She tested the name carefully, like she wasn't sure it would bite. "Mama wants to know if you have medicine. For her ribs. She say they're broken. She says they're fine." Lucy's voice dropped. "But I heard her crying last night. She only cries when something's broken. I remember from before." 8 years old, already knew the sound of her mother's bones cracking. "I got willow bark," Ezra said. "Makes a tea that helps with pain. I'll bring it up to the cabin." "Thank you." She didn't leave, just stood there watching him work with that same intensity her sister had shown yesterday. Something else. Why didn't anybody help before? Ezra stopped, set down his hammer, gave her the respect of a real answer. Your stepfather has money, power. People are scared of him. Are you scared of him? No. Why not? Ezra picked up the hammer again, drove a nail into the post with more force than necessary. Because I already lost everything worth losing. A man with nothing left ain't got nothing to fear. Lucy was quiet for a moment. I'm glad you're not scared, she said finally. Mama used to not be scared, before Papa Jacob. She used to laugh and sing and... She trailed off. I don't remember the last time she laughed. She walked back toward the cabin. Ezra watched her go, something twisting in his chest. 8 years old, carrying the weight of her whole family on those thin shoulders. He thought about Samuel, the son who'd lived 3 days. If he'd survived, he'd be 6 now. Learning to walk, proper. Learning to talk, learning to ride. Learning to be a man. The grief hit fresh like it always did. But this time, something else came with it. Something that felt almost like purpose. Hoofbeats. Coming fast. Ezra grabbed his rifle and moved to the edge of the property. One rider pushing hard through the snow. He raised the gun sighted down the barrel. The rider pulled up short and threw both hands in the air. Easy, boss. It's me, Tom Sutter. 28 years old, lean and weathered. He'd worked Ezra's ranch for 5 years, the closest thing to a friend Ezra had left. You trying to get shot riding in like that? Didn't have time for slow. Tom dismounted, breathing hard. Town's gone crazy. Pruitt's got everybody talking, saying you kidnapped his wife, stole his property. Sheriff's writing up papers right now. Let him write. You don't understand. Tom stepped closer, voice dropping. He's not coming alone. He's gathering men, paying them. I counted 8 at the saloon last night and more coming in this morning. Ezra's jaw tightened. When? Don't know. Day or 2 maybe. He's waiting for the territorial marshal to get back from Cheyenne. Wants to make it legal. Tom glanced toward the cabin. That her, the wife? She's not his wife anymore. Not the way I see it. Way you see it don't matter much when there's 10 men with guns coming to take her back. Ezra was quiet for a long moment. You didn't have to come warn me. Pruitt finds out you were here. You're done in this territory. Tom shrugged. You gave me a job when nobody else would. Taught me horses when I didn't know nothing from nothing. Way I see it, your fight is my fight. This ain't your problem. Made it my problem when I rode 7 miles through the snow to tell you about it. Tom squared his shoulders. What do you need? Ezra looked at the young man. Remembered finding him 6 years ago, half-starved and freezing in a ditch outside Cheyenne. 17 years old, no family, no future. Nothing but a stubborn refusal to die. Ezra had given him a job, a place to sleep, a reason to keep going. Maybe this was what came of that. Medicine, Ezra said. Food, fabric for winter clothes for the children, and information. Anything you hear about Pruitt's plans, I need to know. Mrs. Crutchfield at the store will help. She ain't scared of Pruitt. Her husband stood up to him once before the accident. Tom's voice went dark on that last word. She remembers. Be careful. Always emboss. Tom mounted up, then paused. One more thing. Pruitt's telling everyone you're keeping her against her will, saying you're the villain here. Some folks believe him. Some folks are fools. Yeah, well. Tom kicked his horse forward. Fools with guns are still dangerous. He rode off, disappearing into the white. Ezra stood there for a long moment, rifle in his hands, watching the empty horizon. 2 days. Maybe less. He turned back toward the cabin. Martha stood on the porch watching him. She'd heard everything, he could see it in her face. Pruitt's coming, she said. Not a question. Yes. How many men? 8, maybe more. Martha closed her eyes. When she opened them again, something had changed. The fear was still there, but underneath it, something harder. "I won't go back," she said quietly. "I'll die first, but I won't let him take my girls." "Nobody's dying, and nobody's taking your girls. You can't fight 10 men alone." "Maybe not." Ezra climbed the porch steps, stopped in front of her. "But I can sure as hell try." Martha looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something he didn't expect. She reached out and touched his arm. Just barely. Just enough to feel. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trying. Even if it doesn't work, thank you for trying." Her hand dropped. She went back inside. Ezra stood on the porch, staring at the spot where she'd touched him. 6 years. 6 years since anyone had touched him with anything but violence or business. He looked out at the horizon where Tom had disappeared. At the gray sky threatening more snow. At the cold, empty land that had been his whole world for 6 long years. Then he looked at the cabin door. 3 little girls behind that door. A woman with broken ribs and unbroken spirit. A chance to do something that mattered for the first time since Hannah died. The wind picked up driving snow sideways across the yard. Ezra Cole went to check his ammunition. That night, Nellie spoke for the first time. Ezra had brought the willow bark tea to the cabin, knocked 3 times, waited for Martha to open the door. The girls were settled around the fire. Lucy reading from an old Bible Ezra hadn't touched in years. Bessie playing with a rag doll that looked like it had seen better days. Nellie sat apart, watching everything with those huge, silent eyes. Ezra set the tea on the table. "For your ribs. Drink it hot twice a day. Won't fix them, but it'll help with the pain." "Thank you." He turned to leave. Got halfway to the door. "Man." The voice was so small he almost missed it. He turned. Nellie was looking at him. Not through him like before. At him. "Man," she said again. Martha's hand flew to her mouth. She stopped talking after Jacob hit her last month. Not a word. Nothing. Ezra crouched down, bringing himself to the tiny girl's level. "Hey there, little one. You talking to me?" Nellie studied his face. Then she held out her hand. In it was a small wooden carving, rough and unfinished. A horse. "Yours," she said. Ezra's heart stopped. He knew that carving. He'd made it 6 years ago, sitting by Hannah's bed while she labored. Whittling to keep his hands busy, to keep from going crazy with fear. He'd never finished it. After the funeral, he'd thrown it across the cabin and hadn't looked at it since. This tiny girl had found it. Cleaned it off. Brought it to him. "Where'd you find that, sweetheart?" Nellie pointed to the corner by the fireplace. "Floor. Pretty horse. Sad horse. Like you." Ezra couldn't speak. Something had closed up his throat. "She finds things," Lucy said quietly. "She always has. Things people lose or forget or throw away. She finds them." Ezra took the wooden horse from Nellie's tiny hand. It was warm from her grip. 6 years of dust and grief and forgetting, and this 2-year-old girl had pulled it back into the light. "Thank you," he managed. Nellie nodded solemnly. Then she did something that broke him entirely. She reached up and patted his cheek. Gentle, like she was comforting him. "Sad man," she said. Not mean, sad. Martha was crying silently, hand still over her mouth. Ezra stood. His vision was blurry. He didn't trust his voice. "I'll be in the barn," he said. 3 knocks. He left before they could see the tears. In the hayloft, Ezra held the wooden horse and let himself cry for the first time in 6 years. Not the silent, choking grief he'd carried like a stone. Real tears. The kind that hurt coming out, that left you empty and clean. He cried for Hannah, who'd believed in him even when he didn't deserve it. He cried for Samuel, who'd never had the chance to become anything. He cried for himself, for the man he'd been and the ghost he'd become. And somewhere in the middle of all that grief, something shifted. The wooden horse sat in his palm, unfinished, abandoned, but still there, like him. Maybe it's not too late, he whispered to the darkness. Maybe I can still be something. Do something. Be someone worth being. The wind howled outside. But inside, for the first time in 6 years, Ezra Cole felt something that might have been hope. 2 days until Pruitt came with his men and his papers and his rage. 2 days to figure out how to protect a woman and 3 children from the most powerful man in Wyoming territory. 2 days to become the man Hannah always believed he could be. Ezra closed his eyes, the wooden horse pressed against his heart. Outside, the snow kept falling, and 7 miles south, Jacob Pruitt was counting his guns. Morning came with blood on the snow. Ezra found it at first light, tracks circling the property line. 3 horses, maybe 4. They'd come close enough to see the cabin, then turned back. Scouts. Pruitt was already watching. He followed the tracks south for half a mile before they disappeared into the wind-blown drifts. No way to tell how many men, how many guns. Just the message they'd left behind. We know where you are. We're coming. Ezra rode back fast. Martha was on the porch when he returned, arms wrapped around herself against the cold. She'd seen his face and knew something was wrong before he said a word. They were here. Last night. Rode circles around the property. He dismounted, kept his voice low so the girls wouldn't hear. Pruitt's not waiting for the marshal. He's coming sooner. How soon? Today, tomorrow. Can't say for certain. Martha's face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. What do we do? You take the girls to the root cellar if you hear shooting. Don't come out until I come get you, or until it's been quiet for an hour. Understand? And if you don't come... Ezra didn't answer. He didn't have to. Martha grabbed his arm. Her grip was stronger than he expected. I won't hide in a hole while you die for us. You will if it keeps your daughters alive? There has to be another way. If there is, I ain't found it yet. He pulled away, headed for the barn. Her voice stopped him. Ezra, he turned. I prayed for 3 years, she said. Every night I begged God to send someone, anyone, and nothing happened. Nobody came. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Then you rode into town, and everything changed. Don't tell me that was an accident. Don't tell me you're supposed to die now. Ezra looked at her for a long moment. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, ma'am. I just know what I'm gonna do. And that's stand between your family and anyone who tries to hurt them. He went into the barn and started loading guns. The day passed slow and tense. Ezra set Lucy to watching the south road from the cabin window. The girl took to it like she'd been doing it her whole life, silent and watchful, reporting every movement she saw. Rider coming, she called out just past noon. Ezra grabbed his rifle and stepped onto the porch. One horse moving slow, not charging, not threatening. The rider got close enough to recognize, and Ezra lowered his gun. Edna Crutchfield. 60 years old, gray hair pulled back, tight spine straight as a fence post. She'd run the general store since her husband died 10 years back. One of the few people in Bitter Creek who looked Pruitt in the eye and didn't flinch. Mrs. Crutchfield. Long way from town. Mr. Cole. She dismounted with the ease of a woman half her age. I brought supplies. Medicine, food, fabric. Tom Sutter said you needed them. Tom shouldn't have involved you. Tom didn't involve me. I involved myself. She untied a heavy pack from her saddle. I watched that woman get beaten in the street yesterday. Watched and did nothing like everyone else. I ain't proud of that. You're here now. Better late than never, I suppose. She handed him the pack. There's more. Information. I'm listening. Pruitt's not waiting for the marshal. He sent riders to intercept him, turn him back. Says he'll handle this himself the old way. Her voice dropped. He's got 12 men now, paying them $50 each. Coming tomorrow at first light. Ezra's jaw tightened. 12. Plus himself. That's 13 guns against 1. I've faced worse odds. In the war, maybe. But those men weren't trying to take your family. The word hit him harder than he expected. Family. He hadn't thought of them that way. Hadn't let himself. They're not. They're in your house. You're protecting them with your life. What else would you call it? Ezra had no answer for that. Mrs. Crutchfield looked toward the cabin. Martha had appeared in the doorway, the girls clustered behind her. That's her Sarah Brennan's daughter. Martha Holloway. Her mother was Sarah Brennan. Died 15 years back. Same way Martha's gonna die if Pruitt gets his hands on her again. Mrs. Crutchfield's voice went hard. I knew Sarah. Good woman. Married a man who turned mean after the wedding just like her daughter did. History repeating itself. Not this time. No. The old woman studied his face. I don't suppose it will be. She mounted her horse, then paused. Mr. Cole, there's something else you should know. Pruitt's first wife didn't die of fever like he claims. Everyone knows it. Nobody talks about it. She met his eyes. His second wife didn't fall down those stairs neither. That man's killed before. He'll kill again. I appreciate the warning. It ain't just a warning. It's a promise. Her voice softened slightly. Don't let him add to his count, Mr. Cole. Don't let him win again. She rode off, leaving Ezra standing in the cold with 13 guns pointed at tomorrow. Martha came down from the porch. I heard, she said, 12 men. 13 counting Pruitt. And Mrs. Crutchfield said, she said his first wife. I heard that too. Martha's hands were shaking. Not from cold. He told me she died of consumption. Said I reminded him of her. Said that's why he wanted to marry me. She laughed, bitter and broken. I thought it was romantic. I thought he was a grieving widower looking for love. You couldn't have known. I should have. The signs were there. The way he talked about her. The way he smiled when he described her death. She wrapped her arms around herself. He smiled, Ezra, like it was a happy memory. Listen to me. Ezra stepped closer. What happened to his other wives ain't gonna happen to you. I won't let it. You keep saying that, like you can control everything, like you can stop bullets with your bare hands. I can't stop bullets, but I can shoot back. Against 13 men. If that's what it takes. Martha stared at him. The fear was there, but something else too. Something that looked almost like anger. Why? She demanded. Why do you care so much? You knew me for 5 minutes before you threw your life away. Why? I told you. I couldn't save Hannah. That's not enough. That's not a reason to die for a stranger and her children. Then what do you want me to say? The truth. Ezra stepped back like she'd hit him. The truth. He'd been avoiding it for 2 days, burying it under duty and obligation and the ghost of his dead wife. But Martha's eyes demanded an answer, and for once, he didn't have a lie ready. Because you remind me of her, he said quietly. Not how you look, how you fight. Hannah never gave up on anything. Not on me, not on our life out here, not even when things got hard. She believed things could be better, even when they weren't. Martha was silent. When I saw you in the street getting hit, and getting up, getting hit, and getting up, I saw her. I saw what she would have done if I'd been the one to turn mean. His voice cracked. I couldn't save her from dying, but I could save someone like her from living through what killed her spirit. Martha's eyes filled with tears. That's the truth, Ezra said. The whole truth. I ain't doing this just because it's right. I'm doing it because losing you would feel like losing her all over again. They stood there in the cold, the weight of his words hanging between them. Then Martha did something that changed everything. She stepped forward and took his hand. Not grabbing, not desperate, just holding it, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then don't lose me, she whispered. Figure out how to win. Her hand was warm in his, small but strong. The hand of a woman who'd survived 3 years of hell and hadn't broken. I'll try, he said. Don't try, do it. She squeezed his fingers. My girls need you alive. I need you alive. She let go and walked back to the cabin. At the door she turned. Tomorrow at first light. That gives us one night to prepare. What do we do? Ezra looked at his ranch, the cabin, the barn, the fences that wouldn't stop a determined man, let alone 13. Then he looked at Martha, at the three faces watching from the window behind her. We make them pay for every inch, he said, and we pray that's enough. The afternoon passed in a blur of preparation. Ezra showed Lucy how to load a rifle. The girl learned fast, her small hands steady on the metal. I don't want you shooting, he told her. But if something happens to me and they get past the door, you aim for the chest and you don't stop pulling the trigger until they stop moving. Lucy nodded, no fear in her eyes, just that same hard determination he'd seen in her mother. I won't let them hurt Mama or my sisters. I know you won't. Martha worked alongside him, ignoring the pain in her ribs. She helped him move furniture to reinforce the door-filled buckets with water in case of fire, organized the food stores so they could hold out for days if needed. Bessie kept the younger ones occupied, telling them stories and playing games while the adults prepared for war. Nellie stayed close to Ezra. Every time he turned around, she was there, those huge dark eyes watching everything he did. She didn't speak again, but she didn't need to. Her presence said enough. As the sun began to set, Tom Sutter returned. He rode in fast snow flying from his horse's hooves, and Ezra met him at the property line with rifle raised. It's me, boss. Got news. Good or bad? Both. Tom dismounted, breathing hard. Bad first. Pruitt's moving tonight, not tomorrow. Left town an hour ago with his men. They're making camp 5 miles south, planning to hit you at midnight while you're sleeping. Ezra's blood went cold. How many? 14 now. 2 more joined up this afternoon. And the good news? Tom grinned. It was the first time Ezra had seen the young man smile in days. The good news is, I ain't the only one who thinks Pruitt's gone too far. There's 6 men in town who served with me in the militia. Good men. Men who remember what it means to protect the innocent. His grin widened. They're riding here right now. Should arrive within the hour. 6 men. Plus me. That's 7 guns on your side. Tom's voice sobered. Still outnumbered, but not as bad as before. 7 against 14. Better odds than 1 against 14. Why would they risk it? Because some things matter more than money. Because Pruitt's been a poison in this territory for too long. Because they got wives and daughters too, and they know what happens when men like Pruitt get away with murder. Ezra looked at the young man he'd pulled out of a ditch 6 years ago. The scared boy was gone. In his place stood a man willing to die for a stranger. Tom, I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me if we survive. The 6 men arrived just as darkness fell. Ezra knew some of them. Marcus Webb, a blacksmith with arms like tree trunks. Daniel Frost, a former Army sharpshooter. The Cooper brothers, James and William, who'd lost their mother to a man just like Pruitt. Samuel Green, a preacher's son, who'd traded his Bible for a rifle. And old Pete Rollins, 65 years old, who claimed he was too mean to die. They gathered in Ezra's barn, faces grim in the lamplight. Pruitt's coming at midnight, Tom explained. 14 men armed and ready. His plan is to burn us out, grab the woman and children, and make it look like Cole started it. How do you know his plan? Daniel Frost asked. Because his foreman talks too much when he's drunk, and I bought him whiskey all afternoon. Marcus Webb laughed, a deep rumbling sound. Smart kid. Smart enough to know we need a plan of our own. Tom looked at Ezra. Boss, you know this land better than anyone. What do you think? Ezra had been thinking about nothing else for hours. They're coming from the south. Only approach that makes sense. The north side backs up to the hills, too steep for horses in the dark. East and west are open prairie, no cover. So we focus on the south, Daniel said. We split up. Half of us in the barn, half in the tree line 200 yards out. When they come, we let them get close enough to see the cabin. Then the men in the trees open fire from behind. Catch them in a crossfire. That's the idea. They'll expect resistance from the house. They won't expect it from behind. Pete Rollins spat tobacco juice onto the hay. I like it. Dirty fighting for dirty men. The women and children. Root cellar under the cabin floor. 6 inches of packed earth between them and anything that happens above. Marcus Webb nodded slowly. It could work, if they don't know we're coming. They don't. Pruitt thinks I'm alone. He doesn't know about any of you. The men exchanged looks. Something passed between them unspoken but understood. Then let's give him a surprise, Daniel Frost said. I haven't shot a man since the war. About time I remembered how. They spent the next 3 hours preparing. Ezra went to the cabin one last time. Martha was waiting for him, the girls already bedded down near the fireplace. It's time, he said. You need to get them to the cellar. I know. She didn't move. Ezra, if something happens tonight, nothing's gonna happen. If it does, her voice was fierce. I need you to know something. These past 2 days, they're the first time I've felt safe in 3 years. The first time my girls have slept without nightmares. Whatever happens tonight, thank you for that. Martha, I'm not finished. She stepped closer. Close enough that he could see the firelight reflected in her eyes. When this is over, if we both survive, I don't want to go back to being strangers. I don't want to pretend this was just charity. What do you want? I want to stay, here, with you. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I know it's too soon. I know you're still grieving. But I needed to say it, in case I don't get another chance. Ezra's heart was pounding, not from fear, from something else entirely. When this is over, he said slowly, we'll talk about the future. But right now I need you to do something for me. Anything. Stay alive, keep your girls alive, and trust me to handle what comes. Martha nodded. Then she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his cheek. Come back to us, she whispered. Please. She gathered the girls, Lucy alert and watchful, Bessie sleepy and confused. Nellie silent as always, and led them to the cellar door in the corner of the cabin. Ezra helped them down the ladder. The root cellar was small but dry, lined with preserved vegetables and salted meat. Enough supplies to last a week if needed. 3 knocks, he reminded them. Don't open for anyone else. Lucy looked up at him from the bottom of the ladder. In the dim light, she looked older than 8, ancient almost. Kill them all, she said quietly. Every single one. It wasn't a request. It was an order. Ezra closed the cellar door and covered it with the rug. Then he went out to meet the men who wanted him dead. The hours before midnight stretched like years. Ezra waited in the barn with Marcus and Pete watching the south through gaps in the wooden walls. Tom led the others to the tree line, invisible in the darkness. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. At 11:45, Marcus touched Ezra's arm and pointed. Lights. Torches in the distance, bobbing through the darkness like angry fireflies. 14 of them, maybe more. They came slow, spread out in a line too smart to bunch up. Professional. Pruitt had hired men who knew what they were doing. Ezra raised his rifle and waited. The torches got closer, close enough to see faces. Pruitt rode at the center, his horse prancing nervously. The men around him were a mix of hired guns and town thugs, all armed, all ready. They stopped 100 yards from the cabin. Cole, Pruitt's voice rang across the snow. I know you're in there. Come out and face me like a man. Silence. I've got 14 men. Cole, you've got nothing. This is your last chance. Send out my wife and we'll let you live. Still nothing. Pruitt's voice turned ugly. Fine. Have it your way. Boys, burn it down. The men dismounted. Some carried torches, others rifles. They started forward, spread out to surround the cabin. 50 yards. 40. 30. "Now!" Ezra whispered. The tree line erupted. Tom's men opened fire from behind muzzle flashes, lighting up the darkness. 2 of Pruitt's men went down before anyone knew what was happening. Ezra burst from the barn rifle blazing. Marcus and Pete were right behind him, their shots joining the chaos. The hired guns panicked. Some fired back at the trees, some at the barn, some just ran. But others held their ground. Professional to the core. A bullet whined past Ezra's ear. He dropped to one knee, sighted fired. A man screamed and fell. The battle dissolved into chaos. Ezra lost track of everything except the next target, the next shot, the next breath. Smoke filled the air. Men shouted and cursed and died. He saw Tom take a bullet to the shoulder and keep firing. Saw old Pete Rollins charge a man twice his size and beat him down with the butt of his rifle. Saw Marcus Webb stand in the open like a giant, daring anyone to face him. And then he saw Pruitt. The man was running. Not toward the cabin. Away from it. Fleeing while his hired guns died for him. Ezra started after him. "Cole!" Marcus shouted. "Let him go. We need you here." But Ezra wasn't listening. 3 years of beatings. 3 little girls learning to fear their mother's screams. A woman who'd married a monster to feed her children. He couldn't let Pruitt escape. Not after everything. He caught up with him at the edge of the tree line. Pruitt heard him coming and spun, pistol raised. They fired at the same time. Pruitt's shot went wide. Ezra's didn't. The wealthy rancher crumpled into the snow, clutching his gut. Blood spread beneath him, black in the moonlight. Ezra stood over him, rifle aimed at his head. "Please," Pruitt gasped. "Please, I have money. I'll give you anything. Everything." "You don't have anything I want." "The woman. You can keep her. Keep all of them. I'll sign papers. I'll disappear. Just please don't..." "Don't what? Don't do to you what you did to 2 wives already." Pruitt's face went gray. "How did you..." "Everyone knows. Nobody talks. But everyone knows." "It wasn't... I didn't mean to... They made me angry." "They made you angry." Ezra's voice was ice. "So you beat them, killed them, and now you're begging for mercy. Please." "Did they beg your wives? Did they say please?" Pruitt was crying now, tears and snot and blood mixing on his face. "I don't want to die, please, I don't want to die." Ezra's finger tightened on the trigger. 1 shot. That's all it would take. Justice for 2 dead women and 3 terrified children. An end to the monster who'd tormented this territory for years. His hand shook. "Ezra," Martha's voice, behind him. She'd left the cellar. Come out despite his orders. He didn't turn. Didn't take his eyes off Pruitt. "Go back inside." "Not without you." She came closer, close enough to see what he was about to do. "Ezra, please, don't." "He deserves it." "Maybe. But you don't deserve to carry it." Her hand touched his arm, gentle, steady. "Let the law have him. Let him rot in prison. Don't become what he is. The law won't touch him. He owns the law. Then we'll find law he doesn't own. Federal law, territorial law, something." Her voice broke. "Please, Ezra. My girls are watching." He glanced back. Lucy stood at the edge of the cabin, Bessie and Nellie behind her. All 3 watching. All 3 waiting to see what kind of man he really was. Ezra looked at Pruitt, at the blood spreading across the snow, at the man who'd caused so much pain, begging for a mercy he'd never given. Then he lowered his rifle. "You're gonna live," he said quietly. "You're gonna stand trial. And you're gonna spend the rest of your life in a cell thinking about every woman you ever hurt." Pruitt sobbed with relief. "That's worse than dying," Ezra continued. "Trust me. I've spent 6 years wishing I was dead. Living with what you've done is the real punishment." He turned his back on Jacob Pruitt and walked toward Martha. Behind him, Marcus Webb appeared from the smoke and chaos. "I'll watch him," the blacksmith said. "He ain't going nowhere." Ezra nodded, kept walking. Martha met him halfway. Her arms went around him, holding tight despite his blood-soaked clothes and the rifle still clutched in his hands. "It's over," she whispered. "It's over." He let himself hold her, let himself breathe, let himself believe for just a moment that she might be right. The girls reached them seconds later. Lucy pressed against his side. Bessie grabbed his coat. Nellie raised her arms, demanding to be held. Ezra lifted her with one arm, the other still around Martha. "Sad man," Nellie said quietly, patting his cheek like she had before. "Not sad anymore." He looked at the four faces surrounding him, at the trust in their eyes, at the hope he'd thought he'd never feel again. "No," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Not anymore." Around them, the smoke began to clear. The sounds of fighting faded. Tom Sutter limped toward them, grinning, despite the blood running down his arm. "We got them, boss. Every last one. The ones that ain't dead are tied up waiting for the marshal." Casualties. Pete took a bullet to the leg, but he's too ornery to die. Everyone else is walking. Tom looked at Martha and the girls. "Worth it. Every bit of it." Ezra nodded. Words wouldn't come. Dawn was still hours away. But standing there in the cold, surrounded by the people he'd saved and the people who'd saved him, Ezra Cole felt the darkness beginning to lift. 6 years of grief. 6 years of guilt. 6 years of wishing he'd died with his wife and son. And now finally a reason to live. He pulled Martha closer, felt the girls press against him, and watched the smoke rise toward the stars. It wasn't over. Not really. There would be trials and testimony, questions and complications. The territory would have to reckon with what Pruitt had done and what they'd let him do. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, they'd survived. And for the first time since Hannah died, that felt like enough. 3 days after the battle, the federal marshal arrived. Marshal William Jennings rode into Bitter Creek with 4 deputies and a reputation that stretched from Kansas to California. He'd hung more outlaws than any lawman in the territory, and he didn't take bribes. Ezra met him at the edge of town, Martha beside him on the wagon seat. The girls sat in the back, Lucy keeping watch like she always did now. "You, Cole." The marshal's voice was gravel and gunpowder. "I am." "Heard you started a war." "Heard wrong. I finished one." Jennings studied him for a long moment. Then his eyes moved to Martha, to the fading bruises on her face, to the 3 children huddled in the wagon. "Mrs. Pruitt." "Mrs. Holloway," Martha corrected. "I was Holloway before I made the mistake of marrying that man." "Fair enough." Jennings dismounted. "I've got 14 men in custody, 6 of them wounded. I've got a wealthy rancher with a hole in his gut claiming you tried to murder him. And I've got half a town too scared to talk, and the other half talking too much. What do you need from us?" "The truth, start to finish, every detail." Ezra looked at Martha. She nodded. "Then you better come up to the ranch," Ezra said. "It's a long story." They told it in this cabin, all of them gathered around the fire. Martha spoke first, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was describing. 3 years of beatings. 3 years of terror. 3 years of watching her daughters learn to flinch at loud noises and hide when footsteps approached. Lucy added details her mother had tried to spare them. The night Pruitt threw Bessie across the room for crying. The time he locked them all in the root cellar for 2 days without food. The moment he'd backhanded Nellie so hard, she stopped speaking. Jennings listened without interrupting. His face stayed stone, but something dark moved behind his eyes. When they finished, he turned to Ezra. "And you? What's your part in this?" "I saw her getting beaten in the street. I stopped it. By taking another man's wife. By taking a woman away from the man who was killing her." Ezra's voice hardened. There's a difference. The law might not see it that way. Then the law is blind. Jennings was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a stack of papers. These are statements from Pruitt's household staff, 3 of them, all saying the same thing. He spread the papers on the table. His first wife didn't die of consumption. She died from a beating so severe it broke her skull. They buried her in the garden before anyone could see the body. Martha's hand flew to her mouth. His second wife didn't fall downstairs. He pushed her. The cook watched it happen through a window. Why didn't they say anything before? Ezra demanded. Because Pruitt paid them, threatened them, made them believe they'd hang right alongside him if the truth came out. Jennings gathered the papers. They're talking now because he can't hurt them anymore, because someone finally stood up to him. He looked at Ezra with something that might have been respect. You broke the damn coal. Now the flood's coming. The trial started a week later. They held it in the town hall, the only building big enough to hold everyone who wanted to watch. People came from 3 counties away, some to support Pruitt, most to see him fall. Martha testified first. She walked to the front of the room in a dress Mrs. Crutchfield had given her, her head held high despite the whispers that followed her every step. Ezra watched from the gallery, his hands clenched so tight his knuckles went white. Mrs. Holloway. The prosecutor, a young man from Cheyenne, spoke gently. Can you describe your marriage to Jacob Pruitt? Martha's voice didn't waver. He hit me the first time on our wedding night. I'd asked him to be gentle, and he said wives don't make requests. They obey. The courtroom went silent. After that it was every week. Sometimes every day. If dinner was cold, he hit me. If the children were loud, he hit me. If I looked at him wrong, if I breathed wrong, if I existed wrong. She paused. He broke my ribs 6 times. My arm twice. My nose once. The doctor in town set the bones and never said a word. Why didn't you leave? Where would I go? I had 3 children and no money. He controlled everything. And he told me... Her voice cracked for the first time. He told me if I ever tried to run, he'd kill the girls first. Make me watch. Then kill me slow. Ezra stood up before he knew he was moving. Tom Sutter grabbed his arm, pulled him back down. Easy, boss. Let her finish. Martha continued. I believed him. I'd seen what he did to his other wives. Everyone knew, but nobody said anything. So I stayed. I took the beatings, and I prayed for death, and I told myself at least my daughters were alive. What changed? Martha looked across the courtroom, found Ezra's eyes. Someone saved me. A stranger who had no reason to care and every reason to look away. He didn't look away. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Pruitt's lawyer stood up. A slick man from back east, expensive suit, oiled hair. The kind of man who made money defending the indefensible. Mrs. Holloway, you claim my client abused you for 3 years. I don't claim it. It happened. Yet you have no witnesses to these alleged beatings. He beat me in front of the whole town 3 days before Mr. Cole saved me. 15 people watched. Ask any of them. Ah, yes, the incident in the street. The lawyer smiled like a snake. My client admits he lost his temper. He was frustrated by your inadequacies. My inadequacies. You failed to produce an heir. Any man would be frustrated. Martha's eyes went cold. I gave him 3 daughters. 3 healthy, beautiful daughters. That's not inadequacy. That's biology. But he didn't want daughters. He wanted property. Something to carry on his name and his money and his cruelty. Mrs. Holloway. He called my children worthless, cursed. He said I was defective because I couldn't give him sons. Her voice rose. And you stand there defending him. You stand there pretending he's the victim. I'm simply establishing. You're establishing nothing except that money can buy anything in this territory, including lawyers willing to defend murderers. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. The lawyer turned red. Your Honor, I demand this witness be held in contempt for telling the truth. Martha shot back. "Go ahead, lock me up. At least in jail, I'll be safer than I was in his house." The judge restored order, but the damage was done. Every person in that room had seen Martha's fire, her courage, her absolute refusal to be silenced. Ezra testified next. He told them about finding Martha in the street, about the choice he'd made in an instant, without thinking, without calculating, about bringing her and the girls to his ranch and standing against 14 men who came to take her back. "Why did you do it?" the prosecutor asked. Ezra was quiet for a moment. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything. My wife died 6 years ago. My son with her. I've spent every day since then wondering why I survived and they didn't." He looked at Martha, at the 3 girls sitting behind her, Lucy's hand wrapped tight around Bessie's. "When I saw her in the street, I saw a chance to do something that mattered, to save someone who couldn't save herself. Not because she was weak, but because nobody was letting her be strong. And the 14 men, you could have died. Probably should have. But some things are worth dying for. Protecting the innocent is one of them." The prosecutor sat down. Pruitt's lawyer stood. "Mr. Cole, you admit you shot my client." "I do." "You admit you gathered armed men to attack him." "I gathered armed men to defend a woman and her children from 14 criminals who came to kidnap them." "That's a matter of perspective." "No, that's a matter of fact." Ezra leaned forward. "Your client sent scouts to circle my property at night. Your client paid men $50 each to help him retrieve his property. Your client planned to attack at midnight, burn down my cabin, and drag a woman and 3 children back to a house where he'd already killed 2 wives. Allegedly killed. His own staff testified to it. His own cook watched him push a woman down a flight of stairs." Ezra's voice was ice. "There's nothing alleged about murder when you've got witnesses. The staff could be lying. They could have been coerced. By who? The man who paid their wages, the man who had them under his thumb for years." Ezra shook his head. "They're not lying. They're finally free to tell the truth. And the truth is, your client is a monster who thought money could buy his way out of anything. Mr. Cole, he beat 3 wives, killed 2 of them, terrorized 3 children, and when someone finally stopped him, he cried like a baby in the snow and begged for mercy." Ezra looked directly at Pruitt. "You want to defend that, go ahead, but don't pretend you're on the side of justice." The courtroom erupted again. The judge declared a recess. Ezra stepped down from the witness stand, his legs shaking, but his voice steady. Tom Sutter met him outside. "Hell of a speech, boss." "Didn't plan it, just came out." "The best ones always do." Martha found him a moment later. She didn't speak, just took his hand and held it. They stood there together, watching the crowd mill and gossip and argue. "Whatever happens," Martha said quietly, "thank you. It's not over yet." "I know, but even if he walks free, you gave me something I never thought I'd have again." "What's that?" "My voice." She squeezed his hand. 3 years he told me to be quiet, to accept, to endure. And today I stood up there and told the whole territory what he did. That matters. Even if nothing else happens, that matters. Ezra looked at her. At the strength in her eyes. At the woman who'd survived 3 years of hell and come out fighting. "He's not walking free," he said. "I'll make sure of that." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I will." The trial resumed the next morning. Pruitt's lawyer called character witnesses, business partners who praised his generosity, church members who spoke of his faith, townspeople who owed him money and owed him silence. But for every witness who defended him, another came forward to condemn. Mrs. Crutchfield testified about Sarah Brennan, Martha's mother, who died under suspicious circumstances 20 years ago at the hands of a man just like Pruitt. "History repeats," the old woman said, staring straight at the jury. "Unless someone stops it." Dr. Hensley testified about the bones he'd set in Martha's body, the injuries he'd documented and hidden, the guilt he'd carried for 3 years. "I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere," he said, his voice breaking. "I was wrong. God forgive me, I was wrong." Even Sheriff Tibbs took the stand, his badge removed, his head bowed. "I knew what he was doing. Everyone knew. But he paid my salary, paid for my wife's medicine. I told myself I was protecting my family by looking away." "And now?" the prosecutor asked. Tibbs looked at Martha, at the girls. "Now I know there's no such thing as protecting one family by sacrificing another. What I did was cowardice. What Cole did was courage." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Ezra waited in the gallery, Martha beside him, the girls at Mrs. Crutchfield's house where they'd be safe regardless of the outcome. The foreman stood. "On the charge of murder in the first degree in the death of Elizabeth Pruitt, we find the defendant guilty." Martha gasped. Ezra's hand tightened on hers. "On the charge of murder in the second degree in the death of Caroline Pruitt, we find the defendant guilty." Tears streamed down Martha's face. "On the charge of aggravated assault against Martha Holloway, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of assault against minor children, we find the defendant guilty." The foreman continued through 8 more charges. Guilty on all counts. Pruitt sat frozen in his chair, his expensive lawyer slumped beside him. The arrogance was gone. The power was gone. All that remained was a broken old man facing the consequences of a lifetime of cruelty. The judge banged his gavel. "Jacob Pruitt, you have been found guilty of crimes so heinous they defy description. You used your wealth and power to terrorize the innocent, to murder the helpless, to destroy lives without consequence. This court sentences you to hang by the neck until dead. May God have mercy on your soul, because this territory has none." Pruitt screamed, tried to run. Deputies tackled him, dragged him from the courtroom, while he shrieked and begged and cursed. Martha buried her face in Ezra's chest and sobbed. Not from fear, not from sadness, from relief so overwhelming it couldn't be contained. "It's over," Ezra whispered, holding her tight. "It's finally over." But as Pruitt was dragged past them, he managed one final look at Martha. One final promise hissed through bloodied lips. "This isn't finished. I've got friends. Powerful friends. They'll come for you. They'll come for all of you." Ezra stepped between them, blocking Pruitt's view. "Let them come," he said quietly. "I'll be waiting." They hanged Jacob Pruitt on a Tuesday morning. Ezra didn't go to watch, neither did Martha. They stayed at the ranch with the girls, going about their morning routine like it was any other day, but they both knew it wasn't. When Tom Sutter rode up that afternoon, they knew what he'd come to say. "It's done. He's gone." Martha closed her eyes, let out a breath she'd been holding for 3 years. "How did he, at the end?" Screamed and cried like the coward he was. Tom dismounted, made a scene about how he was innocent, how everyone was lying. Nobody listened. "Good. There's something else." Tom reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a folded paper. "Judge wanted you to have this." Martha took it, read it slowly. Her hands began to shake. "What is it?" Ezra asked. "It's... The judge dissolved my marriage to Pruitt. Retroactively. Like it never happened." She looked up, eyes bright. "And all of Pruitt's assets, the ranch, the money, everything, it goes to his victims, to Elizabeth's family, to Caroline's family, and to me, for the children." She laughed a sound of disbelief. "Lucy, Bessie, Nellie. They're provided for life." Ezra stared at her. "You're rich." "We're comfortable." She folded the paper carefully. "More than comfortable. We'll never have to worry about money again." It was too much to process. 3 weeks ago, Martha had been a beaten woman with no hope and no future. Now she was free, wealthy, and standing in the home of a man who'd risked everything to save her. "What will you do?" Ezra asked quietly. Martha looked at him, really looked at him. "What do you want me to do?" That's not my choice to make. I'm asking anyway. Ezra was silent for a long moment. He thought about Hannah, about the promises he'd made at her grave, about the 6 years of grief and guilt and loneliness. Then he thought about Martha, about her courage and her fire, about the way she looked at him like he was worth something, about the 3 little girls who'd started calling him by name, who trusted him, who needed him. Stay, he said finally. If you want to, stay. As what? A guest, a tenant. As... He struggled with the words. As whatever you want to be, whatever feels right. Martha stepped closer. And what if I want to be more than a guest? Ezra's heart pounded. Then I'd say it's too soon. We barely know each other. There's still grief to work through for both of us. And I'd say, I don't care about any of that. I'd say the last 3 weeks have been the most alive I've felt in 6 years. I'd say, he took a breath. I'd say I'm falling in love with you, Martha Holloway, and it scares me to death. Martha's eyes filled with tears. Then we're both scared, she whispered. Because I feel the same way. She rose on her toes and kissed him. Not on the cheek this time, on the mouth, soft and tentative and full of promise. Ezra kissed her back. Behind them, unnoticed, Lucy watched from the cabin window. A smile spread across her face, the first real smile in years. She turned to her sisters. I think we're staying, she said. Bessie whooped and did a little dance. Nellie just nodded solemnly and went back to playing with the wooden horse Ezra had finally finished carving for her. Outside, Ezra and Martha broke apart, both breathing hard. We should do this properly, Ezra said. Court you. Take our time. We should. But I don't want to. Neither do I. They looked at each other and laughed. It felt strange after so much pain. Strange but right. Marry me, Ezra said suddenly. Martha blinked. What? Marry me. Not today. Not tomorrow. But soon. When it feels right. Ezra, we've known each other 3 weeks. I know. And I know this is crazy. But I also know I want to spend the rest of my life with you and those girls. I want to be their father. I want to be your husband. I want to build something real, something lasting, something worth living for. Martha stared at him. You're serious. Dead serious. We should wait. Be sensible. We should. But... Ezra took her hands in his. But I've spent 6 years being sensible. 6 years being careful. 6 years playing it safe and dying inside. He squeezed her fingers. I don't want to be safe anymore. I want to be happy. With you. Martha was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Ask me again in a month. If you still feel the same way, I'll say yes. A month. That's my offer. Take it or leave it. Ezra grinned. The expression felt foreign on his face. He couldn't remember the last time he'd smiled like that. I'll take it. They walked back to the cabin together, hand in hand. The sun was setting, painting the snow gold and pink. From inside came the sound of children laughing. Ezra stopped at the door. Hannah would have liked you, he said quietly. She would have wanted this for me. Martha squeezed his hand. Then let's not disappoint her. They went inside into the warmth and the light and the sound of 3 little girls who'd finally found a home. Behind them, the door closed on 3 weeks of terror and trial. Ahead lay something new, something uncertain, something terrifying and beautiful all at once. But for the first time in 6 years, Ezra Cole wasn't afraid of the future. He was looking forward to it. The month passed faster than Ezra expected. Days blurred into weeks, each one bringing new rhythms to the ranch. Lucy learned to ride properly, sitting tall in the saddle like she'd been born to it. Bessie adopted every chicken on the property, naming them and talking to them like old friends. Nellie spoke more now, small words at first, then sentences, her voice growing stronger each day. And Martha. Martha transformed before his eyes. The bruises faded. The flinching stopped. She laughed. Now really laughed, the sound ringing across the yard like music. She took over the kitchen, cooked meals that made Ezra realize he'd been surviving, not living, for 6 years. She mended his clothes, organized his chaos, filled the empty spaces with warmth and purpose. He fell deeper every day, and the fear that came with it never quite went away. 26 days after the trial, Ezra found Martha sitting on the porch at dawn. She had a letter in her hands, her face pale. "What is it?" She held it out without speaking. Ezra read it twice. The words didn't make sense the first time. "Pruitt's brother," he said slowly, "coming from Virginia. He wants what's left of the estate. Says the court had no right to give it to me. Says he'll contest the ruling. Can he do that? I don't know. Maybe." Martha's voice shook. "He's a lawyer, Ezra. A real one, not like that snake who defended Jacob. He works for powerful people back east, banks, railroads. He has connections." Ezra sat down beside her. "When's he arriving?" "The letter was sent 3 weeks ago. He could be here any day." "Then we'll deal with him when he gets here." "How? I don't know anything about law. I don't know how to fight someone like this." "You fought Jacob." "That was different. That was survival. This is—" She gestured helplessly at the letter. "This is papers and courts and men in suits. I don't know that world." "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out." Martha looked at him, fear and frustration warring in her eyes. Why does it never end? Why can't we just be happy without something coming to take it away? Ezra took her hand. "Because that's life. You fight for the good things. You protect them. And when something comes to take them away, you fight harder." "I'm tired of fighting." "I know, but you're not fighting alone anymore." Martha leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. 1 month, she whispered. "You said ask me in a month." "I remember." "It's been 26 days." "I can count. Ask me now." Ezra pulled back, looked at her. "Now. With Pruitt's brother coming. With everything uncertain." "Yes. Now. Because if I've learned anything from the last 3 years, it's that tomorrow isn't promised. I don't want to wait for the perfect moment. I want to grab the moment I have." Ezra's heart pounded. "Martha Holloway, will you marry me?" "Yes." She said it simple and certain, no hesitation, no doubt. "Yes," she said again and kissed him. The girls found them there when they woke up. Lucy took one look and understood. "Finally," she said, rolling her eyes like an adult. "We've been waiting." "You have?" "Of course. Nellie asked if you were going to be our papa 3 days ago. Bessie's been planning the wedding in her head for a week." Ezra looked at the 3 faces staring up at him. Lucy's knowing smile. Bessie's excited bounce. Nellie's solemn nod of approval. "Is that okay with you?" he asked them. "If I marry your mama, if I become your papa?" "Yes," Bessie shouted. Lucy nodded. "It's what we want." Nellie walked over and took his hand. "Papa," she said. Just that one word, but it meant everything. Ezra's eyes burned. He blinked hard. "Then that's what I'll be." The celebration lasted all of 10 minutes before Tom Sutter came riding in with news. "Rider approaching from the east," he called out. "Fancy carriage, city clothes. Looks like money." Ezra's jaw tightened. "Pruitt's brother. Want me to turn him away? No, let him come. Better to face it head on." Martha straightened her dress, her face going hard. The vulnerable woman from the porch was gone. In her place stood someone ready for battle. "Girls, go inside," she said. "But Mama, inside. Now." They obeyed Lucy, herding her sisters through the cabin door with backward glances. The carriage pulled up. A man stepped out. He looked nothing like Jacob. Tall and thin where Jacob had been broad and heavy. Clean-shaven where Jacob had worn a beard. Expensive suit, polished boots. Gold watch chain glinting in the morning light. But his eyes were the same. Cold and calculating, assessing everything they saw. "Mrs. Pruitt, I presume?" "Mrs. Holloway." "Ah, yes, the court's little fiction." He smiled without warmth. "I'm Cornelius Pruitt, Jacob's brother. I've come a long way to meet you." "I know who you are. I got your letter." "Then you know why I'm here." "To steal what the court gave me." Cornelius's smile flickered. "That's an interesting way to put it. I prefer to say I'm here to correct an injustice. My brother's estate belongs to his family, not to the woman who conspired to have him killed." Ezra stepped forward. "Watch your mouth." "And you must be Mr. Cole, the man who started all this." Cornelius looked him up and down with obvious disdain. "The hero of Bitter Creek, the gunman who shot an unarmed man and called it justice. Your brother came to my ranch with 14 armed men. He wasn't unarmed." "According to whom? The same witnesses who testified against him in that farce of a trial." Cornelius shook his head. "I've read the transcripts. Hearsay and hysteria. Any competent court would have thrown it out." The jury didn't agree. The jury was a mob, easily swayed by emotional appeals and pretty faces. His eyes slid to Martha. "My brother warned me about you, Mrs. Holloway. Said you were clever, manipulative, that you'd turned his household against him." Martha's face went white. "Your brother was a monster." "My brother was a businessman. Sometimes that requires difficult decisions. But murder number Jacob was many things, but he wasn't a murderer. He killed 2 women. He disciplined 2 difficult wives. There's a difference." The words hung in the air like poison. Ezra moved before he could stop himself. His fist connected with Cornelius's jaw, and the lawyer stumbled backward against his carriage. "Ezra, no." Martha grabbed his arm, pulled him back. Tom Sutter stepped between them, hand on his gun. Cornelius straightened slowly. Blood trickled from his split lip, but his smile returned wider now. "Assault. In front of witnesses." He dabbed at his mouth with a silk handkerchief. "Thank you, Mr. Cole. That will be very useful in court." "Get off my land." "Your land." "According to the territory's records, this property is mortgaged. You've been behind on payments for 3 years. I've already spoken with the bank. They're quite eager to foreclose." Ezra's blood went cold. "You bought my mortgage?" "I bought several mortgages in this area, including this one." Cornelius tucked away his handkerchief. "Amazing what money can accomplish, isn't it? My brother understood that. It's why he was so successful." "He was successful because he terrorized everyone around him." "He was successful because he understood leverage. As do I." Cornelius climbed back into his carriage. "I'll give you 1 week to vacate the property, Mr. Cole. After that, the sheriff will remove you by force." "Sheriff Tibbs won't help you. He testified against your brother." "Sheriff Tibbs resigned 3 days ago. The new sheriff is much more cooperative." Cornelius smiled one last time. "Oh, and Mrs. Holloway. The court hearing to contest your inheritance is in 2 weeks. I suggest you find a lawyer, though I doubt anyone in this territory will take your case. Money speaks louder than justice, I'm afraid." The carriage pulled away. Martha stood frozen, her hand still on Ezra's arm. "He can't do this, can he?" "I don't know. Ezra, if he takes the ranch, he won't. But the mortgage, I said he won't." Ezra turned to face her. "I've lost 1 home. I'm not losing another. And I'm not losing you or those girls. Whatever it takes, whatever I have to do, I'll find a way." "How?" "He has money, lawyers, connections. We have nothing. We have each other. We have friends. We have a story the whole territory knows. Stories don't pay mortgages. No. But they make powerful enemies." Ezra looked toward the dust cloud where the carriage had disappeared. Cornelius Pruitt just made a mistake. He thinks money makes him untouchable. He's about to learn different. Tom Sutter stepped forward. What do you need, boss? Ride to town. Find Mrs. Crutchfield. Tell her what happened. Then find Marshal Jennings. He needs to know Pruitt's brother is here and making moves. On it. And Tom, be careful. If Cornelius bought the sheriff, he might have bought other people too. Tom nodded and rode off. Ezra turned back to Martha. We're not beaten. Not yet. I want to believe that. Then believe it. He took her hands. 20 minutes ago, you said yes to marrying me. You said you wanted to grab the moment. Well, this is the moment. Ugly and hard and uncertain. Are you still in? Martha looked at him for a long moment. Then her chin came up, and fire returned to her eyes. I survived 3 years with Jacob Pruitt. His brother doesn't scare me. That's my girl. But Ezra, if we lose this fight, then we start over somewhere else, together, as a family. You do that. Leave everything you built here. I'd do anything for you, for Lucy, Bessie, Nellie. This ranch is just land and wood. You're my home now. Martha's eyes filled with tears. But she didn't cry. She'd done enough crying to last a lifetime. Then let's fight, she said. Let's show that fancy lawyer what frontier people are made of. The next 3 days were chaos. Mrs. Crutchfield rallied the town. Not everyone came, but enough did. People who remembered what Jacob Pruitt had done. People who'd testified against him. People who'd lost family to men just like him. They gathered at Ezra's ranch, bringing food supplies and something more valuable information. Cornelius Pruitt's been buying up property all over the territory, Marcus Webb reported. Ranches, farms, businesses. Anyone who owes money, he's snatching up their debts. Why? Martha asked. Control, same as his brother. He wants to own this place, every inch of it. Daniel Frost had more. The new sheriff man named Harker came up from Texas. Got a reputation for being bought. Cornelius paid him $100 just to take the badge. Can we contest it? Already tried. Town council voted him in. 3 of the 5 council members owe money to Cornelius. The web was tightening. Everywhere Ezra looked, Pruitt's money had already been there. What about the marshal? He asked. Jennings is 3 counties away. Some kind of range war. He can't get back for at least 2 weeks. That's after the court hearing. I know. Ezra paced the cabin, mind racing. There has to be something. Some weakness. Nobody's perfect. His brother wasn't, Lucy said quietly. Everyone turned. The girl stood in the doorway, her sisters behind her. Lucy, you're supposed to be in the other room. I know. But I heard what you were talking about. She stepped forward. Jacob wasn't perfect. He thought he was, but he made mistakes, left trails. That's how the servants knew what he did. What are you saying? I'm saying Cornelius might be the same way. He's family. They're probably alike. Martha stared at her daughter. Lucy, you're 8 years old. How do you know about things like this? Because I watched. For 3 years, I watched everything Jacob did. Learned his patterns, his weaknesses, how to stay out of his way. Lucy's voice was steady. Cornelius came here confident. Too confident. Like he'd already won. Men like that get sloppy. Ezra knelt down to her level. You think he's hiding something? I think everyone hides something. And I think someone who came all the way from Virginia to fight for his dead brother's money must have a reason beyond family loyalty. The room went quiet. She's right, Mrs. Crutchfield said slowly. Jacob Pruitt was rich, but not rich enough for someone like Cornelius to care this much. Unless what? Unless Jacob had something Cornelius wants, something valuable enough to travel 1,000 miles for. Martha's face changed, a memory surfacing. The study, she said. Jacob had a locked room in the house. He never let anyone inside. Not me, not the servants, no one. He said it was business papers. Did you ever see what was in there? Once. I opened it by accident. He caught me and... She touched her ribs involuntarily. I never went near it again. But I saw enough. Ledgers, maps, letters with official seals. What kind of seals? Government, I think. I didn't get a good look. Ezra stood up. Tom, how fast can you ride to Pruitt's ranch? An hour, maybe less. The property's been seized by the court right, as part of the estate. Should be. Why? Because as Martha's inheritance, she has the right to inspect it, including any locked rooms. Martha's eyes widened. You want me to go back there? I want us to go together. All of us. Ezra looked at the assembled group. Whatever Jacob was hiding, Cornelius wants it bad enough to threaten an entire territory. I want to know why. And if there's nothing, then we're no worse off than we are now. But if there's something, he smiled grimly, then we might just have our leverage. They rode out within the hour. Martha's hands shook on the reins as they approached the Pruitt ranch. 3 years of memories lived in that house. 3 years of pain and fear and survival. Ezra rode beside her. You don't have to go inside. Yes, I do. Whatever's in there, I need to see it. I need to understand what I was living in the middle of. We'll be right with you. I know. The house loomed ahead. Big and empty now, the servants gone, the livestock sold off. It looked like a corpse, Martha thought. A dead thing that hadn't realized it was dead yet. They dismounted at the front door. Tom Marcus, watch the perimeter. Anyone comes, we need to know. The men nodded and spread out. Ezra took Martha's hand. Lucy fell in behind them, refusing to stay outside despite her mother's protests. I need to see too, the girl said. I need to understand. Martha didn't have the heart to argue. The inside was worse than the outside. Dust everywhere, furniture covered in sheets. The smell of abandonment and decay. Martha led them through the halls, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Past the dining room, where Jacob had thrown plates at her head. Past the parlor, where he'd entertained guests while she hid her bruises. Past the bedroom where... She stopped, took a breath. This way. The study door was locked just as she remembered. Ezra broke it open with one solid kick. Inside the room was pristine. No dust, no decay. Someone had been here recently. Cornelius? Martha breathed. He's already been looking. But did he find what he wanted? They searched. Desk drawers, filing cabinets, bookshelves. Papers everywhere, most of them meaningless. Business contracts, land deeds, financial records. Then Lucy found the hidden panel. Mama, look at this. A section of wall that didn't quite match the rest. Lucy pressed it, and it swung open to reveal a small safe. Can you open it? Ezra asked. I can try. Martha knelt down, thinking. Jacob was paranoid, but he wasn't creative. He used the same combination for everything. His birthday, October 15th, 1831. She turned the dial. 10, 15, 31. The safe clicked open. Inside were 3 items: a leather journal, a stack of letters tied with red ribbon, and a small velvet bag that clinked when Martha picked it up. She opened the bag first. Gold coins spilled into her palm. Not American gold, something foreign, heavy and old. What is this? Ezra picked up one of the letters. Read it. His face went pale. Martha, look at this. The letter was addressed to Jacob Pruitt. The seal at the top bore the eagle of the United States government. The contents made Ezra's blood run cold. These are shipping manifests, weapons, ammunition, being sent to... He flipped through more pages. Confederate sympathizers, during the war. Jacob was a gun runner. Worse, he was a traitor. Ezra held up another document. This is a pardon, signed by a federal judge, in exchange for testimony against his partners. He informed on them. He saved himself by betraying everyone he worked with. And this gold. Ezra looked at the coins. This is payment. From both sides. He played the Union and the Confederacy against each other, made a fortune, and walked away clean. Martha stared at the documents in horror. 3 years. I was married to a traitor for 3 years. You didn't know. I should have. I should have. Mama! Lucy's voice cut through. Look at the journal. The leather book was filled with names, dates, amounts, every transaction Jacob had ever made, documented in his careful handwriting, including the names of his partners. One name appeared more often than any other. Cornelius Pruitt. His brother, Martha whispered. Cornelius wasn't just family. He was Jacob's partner. In all of it. Ezra looked up, his eyes fierce. That's why he's here. That's why he wants the estate. He's not fighting for inheritance. He's fighting to destroy evidence. Evidence of what? Treason. War profiteering. Murder, probably. If this gets to the right people... Ezra gathered the documents carefully. Cornelius Pruitt won't be contesting any inheritance. He'll be running for his life. They rode back to the ranch with evidence that could destroy an empire. But Cornelius was already there waiting. He stood on Ezra's porch, the new sheriff beside him, 6 armed men spread around the property. Mr. Cole, I was hoping you'd return. His eyes found the satchel in Ezra's hands. And I see you've been busy. It's over, Cornelius. We know everything. Do you? How exciting. Cornelius didn't seem worried. Unfortunately, whatever you think you know won't matter. Sheriff Harker has a warrant for your arrest. Assault and battery. You're coming with us. And the documents will be confiscated as evidence, along with anything else you might have acquired. Ezra's hand moved toward his gun. The 6 armed men raised their rifles. I wouldn't, Cornelius said. You might be fast, but you're not that fast. And even if you were there, are women and children present? You wouldn't want them caught in the crossfire. Martha moved closer to her daughters. Lucy's face was pale, but determined. Bessie clung to her mother's skirt. Nellie watched everything with those huge, silent eyes. What do you want? Ezra asked. I want you to hand over those documents. I want you to leave this territory and never return. I want Martha and the children to sign over their inheritance. And I want all of this to go away quietly. And if we refuse, Cornelius smiled, then I'll destroy you, every single one of you, starting with the girls. Martha stepped forward. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? My brother taught me many things, Mrs. Holloway. Patience, persistence, and the value of making examples. He looked at Lucy. Such a pretty child. It would be a shame if something happened to her. Lucy didn't flinch. She stared back at Cornelius with eyes that held no fear. You're just like him, she said quietly. Just like Jacob. You think you can scare everyone into doing what you want. I don't think, little girl. I know. No, you don't. Lucy stepped forward past her mother's reaching hand. My stepfather thought he was untouchable too. Look where he ended up, crying in the snow, begging for mercy. Cornelius's smile faltered. I'm not afraid of you, Lucy continued. I've seen worse than you, lived through worse, and I know something you don't. Oh, and what's that? Help is already coming. A rifle shot cracked through the air. One of the armed men fell, clutching his shoulder. More shots, coming from multiple directions. The tree line erupted with muzzle flashes. Tom Sutter's voice rang out. Federal Marshal, drop your weapons. William Jennings rode out of the tree's badge, gleaming rifle raised. Behind him came a dozen deputies. Nobody move. Cornelius's face went white. Marshal, this is a private matter. Private matter. Jennings dismounted, his eyes hard. "I've got a telegram from the War Department asking about missing documents related to Confederate gun running. I've got 3 witnesses who'll testify you've been threatening and intimidating territorial citizens. And now I've got armed men surrounding a ranch full of women and children." He smiled coldly. "This doesn't look private to me. I have a legitimate legal claim. You have nothing." Ezra stepped forward, the satchel in his hands. "Nothing except evidence of treason, war profiteering, and conspiracy to murder. Your brother documented everything, Cornelius. Every transaction, every partner, every crime." He opened the satchel. "Let the papers spill out. Including your name. On every page." Cornelius lunged for the documents. Jennings caught him, twisted his arm behind his back. "Cornelius Pruitt, you're under arrest for conspiracy threats against territorial citizens and suspected treason against the United States. This is outrageous. I'll have your badge. I have friends in Washington." "Your friends in Washington are the ones who sent me. They've been looking for those documents for 15 years. Jennings nodded to his deputies. "Take him." They dragged Cornelius away, his protests echoing across the yard. Sheriff Harker tried to run. Marcus Webb caught him with one massive arm and threw him to the ground. "Where do you think you're going?" The 6 armed men dropped their weapons and surrendered without a fight. Hired guns with no loyalty beyond their paycheck. And just like that, it was over. Martha stood in the middle of the chaos, her daughters pressed against her, watching justice unfold. Ezra walked over to her, took her hand. "How?" she whispered. "How did the marshal know to come?" "I sent a rider yesterday, just in case. But Tom said he was 3 counties away." "I didn't send Tom." Ezra nodded toward the tree line where a familiar figure emerged. Mrs. Crutchfield, still holding a rifle, walked toward them with a grim smile. "Told you I knew how to handle myself," the old woman said. "My husband was a federal courier before Pruitt killed him. I still know people. Important people." Martha stared at her. "You saved us." "We saved each other." Mrs. Crutchfield looked at Ezra, at Martha, at the 3 girls. "That's what communities do, when they're not being terrorized by monsters." The sun was setting. The armed men were gone. Cornelius was in chains. And on the porch of a small ranch in Wyoming territory, a family stood together. "Is it really over now?" Lucy asked. Ezra looked at Martha, at the girls who'd become his daughters, at the future, stretching out ahead of them, finally clear. "Yeah," he said, "it's over." Martha leaned against him, exhausted and relieved and happy all at once. "What happens now?" Ezra smiled. "Now we get married, build a life, raise 3 amazing daughters." He kissed the top of her head. "Now we live." Lucy rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. Bessie started talking about wedding dresses. And Nellie, silent little Nellie, looked up at Ezra with those huge dark eyes and spoke 2 words that meant more than any verdict or document ever could. "We're home." Spring came to Wyoming territory like a promise kept. The snow melted, the ground softened, green pushed through brown, and the world remembered how to be alive. Ezra stood on his porch watching Martha hang laundry in the yard. Her movements were easy now, no more flinching, no more looking over her shoulder. The bruises had faded months ago. The fear had taken longer, but it was gone too. She caught him watching and smiled. "Staring again." "Can't help it. You're worth staring at." Flatterer. Truth-teller. She laughed, that sound he'd come to love more than anything. The sound of a woman who'd found her way back to joy. Lucy appeared at his elbow. "Papa, when's the preacher coming?" "Papa?" 6 months of hearing that word, and it still made his chest tight. "Tomorrow afternoon." "Why?" "Because Bessie's worried about her dress. She says it makes her look like a potato." "A potato?" Her words, not mine. Ezra hid his smile. "Tell her she looks beautiful, and that potatoes are very respectable vegetables." Lucy rolled her eyes with the dramatic flair only an 8-year-old could manage. That won't help. Then tell her if she keeps fussing, I'll make her wear a flour sack instead. That'll definitely make it worse. Fine. Tell her I said she's the prettiest girl in Wyoming Territory after her mother and sisters. Lucy considered this. That might work. She ran off and Ezra watched her go. 9 years old now, birthday last month. She'd grown 3 inches since January, shot up like a weed in good soil. Her nightmares had stopped. Her smile came easier. Healing. All of them healing. Martha walked over, basket balanced on her hip. What was that about? Bessie thinks she looks like a potato. She told me she looks like a turnip. Ah. Progressing to root vegetables. Very serious. Martha swatted his arm. Don't tease. She's nervous. About the wedding. About everything changing. She's been through a lot of changes this year. Some children need stability. Ezra nodded slowly. You think we're moving too fast? No, I think we're moving exactly right. Martha set down her basket. But I also think we need to talk to her. Make sure she knows this change is good, that this family is permanent. I can do that. We can do it together. She took his hand. Her fingers were warm, calloused from work, strong. Hands that had learned to build instead of just survive. Tomorrow we get married, she said quietly. Tomorrow I become Mrs. Cole. Having second thoughts. Not even close. She squeezed his fingers. But I want you to know something. Whatever happens after tomorrow, whatever challenges come, I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I'm standing right here beside you for the rest of my life. Ezra brought her hand to his lips. Same goes. Whatever comes, we face it together. Promise? Promise. From inside the cabin, Bessie's voice rose in dramatic complaint about unfair dress assignments. Lucy's patient explanation followed. And underneath it all, Nellie's quiet humming a song she'd learned from Martha. Something about roses and sunshine and coming home. Our family, Martha said, listening. Our family. Ezra agreed. And for the first time in 7 years, those words didn't hurt. The night before the wedding, Ezra couldn't sleep. He lay in the barn, staring at the ceiling like he had for 6 years. But tonight, the silence felt different. Fuller. Less empty. He talked to Hannah one last time. Tomorrow, I'm getting married again. You probably knew that was coming. You always knew things before I did. The wind whispered through the barn walls. I loved you, Hannah. I'll always love you. What we had, what we built, what we lost. That doesn't go away because I found something new. It just makes room. He closed his eyes. I hope you're at peace. I hope Samuel is with you. I hope wherever you are, you know that I tried to be the man you believed I could be. A long pause. And I hope you know that Martha and her girls, they saved me. They gave me a reason to keep going when I'd forgotten how. I think you'd like them. I think you'd approve. Somewhere outside, an owl called. Life going on, even in the darkness. Goodbye, Hannah. I'll always carry you with me. But I'm ready to live again now. Really live. I think that's what you'd want. He opened his eyes. For a moment, just a moment, he could swear he smelled lavender. Then it was gone, and he was alone with the night and the peace that had finally found him. Morning came bright and clear. Ezra woke to the sound of chaos in the cabin. Bessie shrieking about her hair. Lucy trying to calm her down. Nellie apparently hiding somewhere, refusing to put on her dress. He walked in to find Martha standing in the middle of the room, hands on her hips, looking like a general surveying a battlefield. Problem. Several. She blew hair out of her face. Bessie's convinced she looks like a vegetable. Lucy can't find her good shoes. And Nellie has decided she wants to get married in her nightgown. Her nightgown. She says it's more comfortable. Ezra knelt down and opened his arms. Nellie emerged from behind the bed and walked into them still in her white nightdress, clutching the wooden horse he'd carved for her. "Hey, little one, what's this about a nightgown? Dresses are itchy." "I know, but today's a special day, and on special days we sometimes wear itchy things to show people we care." Nellie considered this with grave seriousness. "Do you have to wear itchy things? I'm wearing my best shirt. It's got starch in the collar that feels like sandpaper. That's worse than itchy. Much worse. But I'm doing it anyway. You know why." "Why?" "Because today I get to marry your mama, and that's worth a little discomfort." Nellie thought about it. Then she nodded. "Okay, I'll wear the dress, but I'm bringing my horse." "Deal." Crisis averted. For now. Tom Sutter arrived at noon with news. "Preacher's on his way. Should be here within the hour." "Good. Also the whole town's coming." "What?" Tom grinned. "Word got out. Everyone wants to see the wedding. Mrs. Crutchfield's bringing food. Marcus Webb's bringing his fiddle. Even old Pete Rollins is coming, and he said he'd never attend another wedding after his third wife ran off with that traveling salesman." Ezra stared at him. "We were supposed to have a small ceremony." "Yeah, well, you're kind of a hero around here now. People want to celebrate." "I'm not a hero." "Tell that to them." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "Relax, boss. Let people be happy for you. It's not a crime." An hour later, Ezra understood what Tom meant. The yard was full of people. Neighbors he barely knew. Families he'd never spoken to. Men who'd fought beside him that night in January. Women who'd helped Martha through the trial. Children running everywhere laughing and playing. A community. Gathering to witness a new beginning. Mrs. Crutchfield found him standing alone, looking overwhelmed. "Nervous. Terrified." She laughed. "Good. That means you know what's at stake." "I keep thinking something's going to go wrong, that this is too good, that I don't deserve it." The old woman's face softened. "Mr. Cole, Ezra, I've known you for 10 years. Watched you build this ranch from nothing. Watched you lose your wife and son and disappear into grief so deep, I wasn't sure you'd ever come out." "Mrs. Crutchfield, let me finish." She took his hand. "What you did for Martha and those girls, that wasn't just bravery, it was resurrection. You came back to life to save them, and in doing so, you saved yourself." "I didn't." "You did. Everyone sees it. The man who walked around like a ghost for 6 years is gone. In his place is someone who laughs, who hopes, who loves." She squeezed his fingers. "You deserve this, Ezra Cole. You've earned it. Now stop doubting and go marry that woman." The ceremony was simple. They stood under an arch Tom had built from fresh-cut branches, green leaves catching the spring sunlight. The preacher spoke words about love and commitment, about building homes from broken pieces. Ezra barely heard any of it. All he could see was Martha. She wore a blue dress Mrs. Crutchfield had made simple and elegant. Her hair was down the way he liked it. Her eyes never left his. "Do you, Ezra Cole, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice came out steady, stronger than he expected. "Do you, Martha Holloway, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." No hesitation, no fear, just certainty. "Then by the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife." The preacher smiled. "You may kiss the bride." Ezra pulled Martha close and kissed her while the crowd cheered. Lucy rolled her eyes, but couldn't hide her smile. Bessie jumped up and down, all complaints about her dress forgotten. And Nellie, standing between her sisters, held up the wooden horse and made it dance. When they finally broke apart, Martha was crying. "Happy tears," she said before he could ask. "Only happy tears from now on." "Promise. Promise." The celebration lasted until sunset. People danced, ate, told stories. Marcus Webb's fiddle never stopped playing. Children ran wild, including Lucy, Bessie, and Nellie, their formal dresses abandoned for the freedom of bare feet and grass-stained knees. Ezra watched it all from the porch, Martha beside him, her head on his shoulder. "When I married Jacob," she said quietly, "there was no celebration, just a quick ceremony at the courthouse. He said parties were a waste of money. This isn't a waste. No, this is—" She searched for the word. "This is what love looks like. Real love. The kind that brings people together instead of tearing them apart. You deserved this all along. Maybe, but I have it now. That's what matters." As the sun touched the horizon, Mrs. Crutchfield approached them. "There's one more thing. A wedding gift." She handed Martha an envelope. Inside was a deed to the Pruitt Ranch. Martha stared at it, uncomprehending. "I don't understand. This property was seized." "It was, and then it was auctioned, and then it was bought." Mrs. Crutchfield smiled. "By a group of townspeople who pooled their money, as a thank you for everything your family has done for this community." "But the price?" "Cornelius's assets were frozen pending his trial. The government sold everything cheap to recover what they could. We got it for 1/10 of what it was worth." "Who?" "Everyone, dear. Everyone contributed. Even people who don't have much to give." The old woman's eyes were bright. "You're one of us now, and we take care of our own." Martha couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. Ezra found his voice first. "Mrs. Crutchfield, we can't accept this." "You can, and you will." Her voice was firm. "That ranch has been a place of pain for too long. It's time it became something else. A place of healing. A place of hope." She looked at the 3 girls playing in the yard. "A place where children can grow up safe." Martha finally found words. "Thank you. Thank you all. I can't." "You don't have to say anything. Just live well. Be happy. That's thanks enough." The old woman walked away, leaving them with a deed to a future they'd never imagined. That night, after the guests had gone and the girls were asleep, Ezra and Martha sat on the porch watching stars appear. "What do we do with it?" Martha asked. "The ranch. Whatever we want. Sell it. Keep it. Burn it down." "I don't want to burn it. That feels like giving it power it doesn't deserve." "Then we change it. Make it something new. Something that erases what it was." Martha was quiet for a long moment. "An orphanage." "What?" "That's what I want it to be. A place for children who have nowhere else to go. Children like Lucy and Bessie and Nellie might have been if things had gone differently." Her voice strengthened. "There are so many kids out here with no one to protect them. What if we could give them a home?" Ezra stared at her. "You want to take in orphans? I want to give them what someone gave me, a chance, a family, a future." The idea was huge, overwhelming, impossible, and absolutely perfect. How would we even start something like that? "I don't know, but we could figure it out, together." It would be hard. Everything worth doing is hard. We'd need help, funding, support. We have a community now, a community that just bought us a ranch. Martha turned to face him. "Ezra, I spent 3 years being helpless, being powerless, being unable to protect even my own children. I never want to feel that way again, and I never want another woman, another child to feel that way either. So you want to fight? I want to build something bigger than us, something that lasts." Ezra looked at his wife, at the fire in her eyes, at the determination that had kept her alive through 3 years of hell. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Let's do it. Let's turn Jacob Pruitt's house of horrors into a sanctuary for children." Martha threw her arms around him. "I love you, Ezra Cole. I love you too, Martha Cole." They held each other under the stars, two broken people who'd found a way to become whole. Summer came in a blaze of green and gold. The transformation of the Pruitt Ranch began immediately. Volunteers came from across the territory, tearing down, rebuilding, erasing the darkness, and replacing it with light. Ezra and Martha worked alongside them every day, hammer and nail sweat and determination. Lucy took charge of the younger children who came to help, organizing them into teams, assigning tasks with the authority of someone far older than 9. Bessie appointed herself official greeter, welcoming every visitor with enthusiastic tours and detailed explanations of the plans. Nellie, still quiet but no longer silent, could be found wherever Ezra was, handing him tools, holding boards, steady, learning by watching. Tom Sutter became the unofficial foreman, coordinating supplies and schedules with the efficiency of a military campaign. Mrs. Crutchfield handled the paperwork, navigating the maze of territorial law to establish the orphanage as a legal entity. And Marshall Jennings, before returning to his duties, secured federal recognition and funding for the project, calling in favors from Washington. By August, the first wing was complete. They called it Hope House. The first orphan arrived on a Tuesday. A boy named Samuel, 8 years old, found wandering the streets of Cheyenne after his parents died of fever. Thin and scared and distrustful of everyone. Ezra saw himself in the boy's eyes. The same walls, the same fear. He knelt down to Samuel's level, just as he had with Bessie months ago. "Welcome to Hope House. I'm Ezra. This is my wife Martha and our daughters Lucy, Bessie, and Nellie." Samuel didn't respond, just stared at the ground. "I know you're scared. I know you've been through terrible things. And I know you don't trust us yet." Ezra kept his voice gentle. "But I want you to know something. This is your home now, for as long as you need it. Nobody here is going to hurt you. Nobody is going to leave you." Still nothing. Then Nellie stepped forward. She held out the wooden horse, the one Ezra had carved, the one she'd carried everywhere for months. "For you," she said. Samuel looked at the horse, at Nellie, at the family gathered around him. Something in his face cracked. Just a little. Just enough. He took the horse. "Thank you," he whispered. Martha's eyes filled with tears. Ezra's too. It was a small moment. One child, one gift, one crack in the wall of fear. But it was a beginning. More children came. 3 in the first month, 7 by winter, 12 by the following spring. Children from all backgrounds, all circumstances, all levels of brokenness. Lucy became their leader, organizing games and lessons and adventures across the ranch property. Bessie became their cheerleader, filling the halls with energy and enthusiasm and endless chatter about chickens. Nellie became their quiet comfort, appearing beside any child who was struggling, offering silent companionship when words weren't enough. And Ezra and Martha became what they'd always been meant to be, parents, to everyone who needed them. 1 year after the wedding, Ezra stood on the hill behind the original cabin. 2 wooden crosses marked the graves. Hannah Cole, Samuel Cole. He came here every month now, not to grieve, but to remember, to honor. Martha found him there, as she often did, talking to them, just thinking. She slipped her hand into his. "What about how strange life is, how pain leads to purpose, how losing everything can be the first step toward finding something greater." Martha leaned against him. "Do you still miss them?" "Every day. But it doesn't hurt the same way anymore. It's more like gratitude. For the time we had, for the love we shared, for the son I held, even if only for 3 days. That's healing. Is it? Feels more like growing. Maybe they're the same thing." They stood together, looking at the graves at the ranch below, at the children playing in the yard of Hope House in the distance. "I've been thinking," Martha said, about our family, about how it keeps growing." Ezra looked at her. Something in her voice caught his attention. "Growing how?" Martha smiled. That smile he'd come to love more than anything. The smile that had survived 3 years of darkness and emerged brighter than before. "I'm pregnant." The words hit him like thunder. "What?" "I'm pregnant. About 2 months along. I wanted to be sure before I told you." Ezra stared at her. His mind went blank. His heart went full. "A baby. A baby. Our baby. Unless you know something I don't." He laughed. A real laugh, deep and joyful, the kind he'd forgotten he was capable of. "Martha. Martha." He pulled her close, held her tight. "Are you sure? Are you really sure?" "The doctor confirmed it yesterday." "A baby." He said it again, testing the word. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby." He pulled back, looked at her face, saw the joy and the fear mixed together. "Are you happy?" "Terrified," she admitted. "After everything with Jacob, I swore I'd never—" "This is different." "I know. That's why I'm also happy." She touched his face. "This child will be born into love, Ezra. Real love. The kind that protects instead of destroys." "Yes. Yes, it will." He kissed her there on the hillside between the graves of his past and the future growing in her womb. When they broke apart, Martha was crying again. Happy tears. The happiest. They told the girls that evening. Lucy's face went through shock, then calculation, then acceptance. "I'll help with the baby," she announced. "I've had practice with Nellie." "I'm not a baby anymore," Nellie protested. "You were when we came here. Close enough." Bessie's reaction was pure Bessie. "A baby. Can we name it after a chicken Henrietta? If it's a girl, Rooster, if it's a boy." "We're not naming our child Rooster," Ezra said firmly. "What about Drumstick?" "Absolutely not." Nellie's reaction was the quietest and the deepest. She walked over to Martha, placed her small hand on her mother's stomach, and stood very still. "Baby," she said softly. "Yes, sweetheart." "A baby." "Brother or sister?" "We don't know yet." Nellie nodded solemnly. Then she looked up at Ezra. "Good. Family is growing." Simple words. Profound truth. Family is growing. The baby came in February 1 year and 1 month after Ezra had ridden into Bitter Creek and changed everything. A boy. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, screaming his lungs out from the moment he arrived. They named him Thomas after Tom Sutter, who'd risked everything to help them. Tom cried when they told him, denied it afterward, but everyone saw. "Thomas Cole," Martha said, holding the baby while Ezra sat beside her. "It sounds strong." "He is strong. Listen to those lungs. Gets that from his father. Gets his looks from his mother, thank God." Martha laughed, exhausted and happy and complete. The girls crowded around the bed, staring at their new brother with varying degrees of fascination. "He's so small," Lucy said. "He's so loud," Bessie added. Nellie just watched, silent and thoughtful. "What do you think, Nellie?" Ezra asked. The girl considered for a long moment. Then she smiled the biggest smile she had ever given. "Family is complete." Ezra looked around the room, at his wife, at his 4 children, at the life he'd built from the ashes of the one he'd lost. "Yeah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Family is complete." Spring came again. Ezra stood on his porch watching the sun rise over his land. In his arms, Thomas slept peacefully, tiny fist wrapped around Ezra's finger. Behind him, Martha prepared breakfast while the girls argued about chores. In the distance, Hope House bustled with activity, 23 children now calling it home. And on the hill behind the cabin, 2 graves kept watch over it all. This is what healing looks like, Ezra thought. Not forgetting the pain, but building something beautiful around it. Martha came to stand beside him. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing. How lucky I am." "Lucky." 7 years ago, I buried my wife and son. I thought my life was over. I spent 6 years waiting to die. He looked at her. "Then I rode into town one morning and everything changed. You saved me." We saved each other. Thomas stirred in his arms, made a small sound, then settled back to sleep. I never thought I'd have this again, Ezra said quietly. A family, a purpose, a reason to wake up in the morning. And now? Now I can't imagine life any other way. Martha leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. I love you, Ezra Cole. I love you too, Martha Cole. Lucy appeared in the doorway. Papa Bessie's trying to put a chicken in the baby's crib again. Again? She says Thomas needs a friend. Tell her the chicken stays outside. I tried. She's not listening. Ezra sighed, but he was smiling. Duty calls. He handed Thomas to Martha and went inside to mediate between his daughter and her poultry. Martha watched him go, love and laughter in her eyes. This was her life now. Chaos and joy, challenges and triumphs, a family built from broken pieces stronger for having been rebuilt. She looked at the son in her arms, at the daughters squabbling inside, at the man who'd given her everything by simply being brave enough to act when others looked away. 7 years ago, Ezra Cole had been a dead man walking. 7 years ago, Martha Holloway had been a prisoner in her own home. Now they were alive. Together. Building a future neither had dared to imagine. The sun rose higher, warming the land, melting the last traces of winter. Spring had come to Wyoming territory. And in a small cabin on a ranch that had once held nothing but ghosts, a family gathered around the breakfast table, laughing and arguing and loving each other with every breath. This is what home looks like. Not a place, but the people who fill it with love. Ezra had lost everything once. Then he'd found something better. Not a replacement, not a substitute, something new, something whole, something worth fighting for. He looked at his wife, his children, his life, and he knew with absolute certainty that he would do it all again. Every moment of grief, every year of loneliness, every risk, every fear, every desperate choice, all of it had led here, to this table, to this family, to this love. And that made everything worth it. Outside, the world kept turning. Inside, a family kept growing. And in the heart of a man who'd once wished for death, life burned brighter than ever before. Ezra Cole had ridden into Bitter Creek looking for nothing but feed for his horses. He'd ridden out with everything that mattered. That was the miracle of it. The unexpected grace. The truth he'd carry with him for the rest of his days. Sometimes salvation comes looking for you. All you have to do is be brave enough to say yes.